On a beautiful July evening, my friend Claire and I fly into Dubrovnik and watch it appear below us. The old town stands surrounded by blue water and blue sky. It possesses one of those romantic vistas that causes a traveler's heart to beat faster. As we pass over the city and land at the airport, I feel an urgency to get inside the walls and explore. In the taxi to Old Town, our driver talks about the war and how it affected him and those in the city. He points at the mountain to our right and says, "That's Bosnia. They got the rocks, we got the coast, but many had to die for it." That's what Dubrovnik feels like, a resilient city that still shows its scars. If you were in Italy across the sea, you might assume the remnant of a stone building was an ancient ruin. Here, you aren't sure if it's a ruin of war or just decay. With no cars in Old Town, all the streets are narrow thoroughfares like you'd find in most old European cities. We meander our luggage through the city streets, learning the place by foot. We will stay in Dubrovnik for a week, and we've rented a small apartment in Old Town, which will give us the flexibility of our own schedules and our own meals, with a mini kitchen to make breakfasts and pack lunches. Over the course of the week, we learn about the city and its people by walking the streets, taking tours, and eating in its many restaurants. Every city offers an ideal activity to learn how to navigate it. Walking the Old Town walls offers a 360-degree view of the city, and it's the first thing we do on our first morning. Dubrovnik is a hot spot for cruise ships, and when they dock, up to 9,000 people can swarm the streets. Everyone recommends starting the walls early to avoid the crowds. By 10 a.m., we walk up the steps and start a fabulous 2-hour trek around the city. The view changes around every corner. Sea, church, overgrown ruin, laundry on the line, mountains, little cafes offering shade from the scorching sun and a cool drink. I've walked castle walls before, but none compared to Dubrovnik. The walls give a bird's-eye view of what I love most, the perfect blend of run-down and rebuilt, blooming gardens and solid stone. Every place has its own historical story, but Dubrovnik has a mix of the real and the fictional. For a firm grasp on the real, we visit the War Photo Museum, a provocative set of exhibits about war, particularly images from Dubrovnik during the siege of the city in 1991-92. Powerful images and videos bring the bustle of the current city into sharp contrast. The war photographs show empty Old Town streets, people staying off the streets to avoid the snipers hidden in the mountains above the city. Photojournalism and war photography don't fuel my own work, but I am interested in the stories the photographs tell and the photographer's bravery in getting them. We spend an afternoon visiting a few churches. First, we visit the cathedral and pay the small fee to see the treasury. In a very small room, you can view the arm, leg, and perhaps the skull of St. Blas gilded in a case. What a gruesome, strange tradition common in many churches around the world. We then visit the Dominican monastery with a gorgeous cloister garden, 2 interesting museum rooms, and a lovely little church containing an eclectic collection of art and jewelry. We walk up the many steps to St. Ignatius Church and see its elaborate altarpiece. Visiting Dubrovnik also involves visiting the fictional Westeros, where Game of Thrones was filmed. On another bright blue sky day in Dubrovnik, we take a Game of Thrones walking tour. There are several on offer from multiple companies, so that tells you how popular a thing it is. Claire comes along for the tour, though she hasn't read or watched the series, because the guide promises that he will talk about Dubrovnik history throughout the tour. The tour is fantastic, interesting stories about filming, photos from the show to coincide with the actual sites, and lots of Dubrovnik history. We are visiting Dubrovnik after season 5 airs, and the guide points out that they filmed about 10 days in Dubrovnik. But for season 6, they have only scheduled 3 days, which he thinks tells us something about the focus for the next season. When they shot the shame scene for the season 5 finale, they closed down the street for 3 days, which meant closing down several restaurants and compensating them. Everyone participating is sworn to secrecy during the shoot and after. We visit the pier where Sansa and Littlefinger plot her escape, and where Marcella returns to King's Landing. The guide takes us up a hill where Joffrey and Marjorie's wedding took place. "I know what you're going to ask me," he said, walking to a patch of ground. "This is where the little bastard died." there are chuckles from the crowd. And look, there is dog poop, and the grass is actually green here, so nature must have liked that death. Only a bit morbid, since it's a fictional death we joke about, and Joffrey really deserved it. One of my favorite locations on the tour is the fortress where many scenes are filmed. It's across the way from Old Town and gives an excellent view of the city. It also has its own interesting stories of the Dubrovnik Republic's history with Venice. The fortress contains the usual cannons and thick walls, and it only required 12 men to hold it, 21 if they really needed extra manpower. The tour ends as all kitschy ones do, with a photo op, a chance to sit on the fictional Iron Throne and brandish your sword. We are not intimidating in our photos, so we'll just have to follow someone else on their quest for it. Eating in Old Town is similar to other European cities. You find a cute restaurant on a quiet street with a decent menu. You eat your lunch resting in the cool shade of a quiet side lane. You visit the outdoor produce market to buy fresh fruit and bread for the day's meals. A meal with a view always makes a priority list. On our second night, we dress up and walk up to the cable car, our legs moaning a bit from hours on the city walls, to a restaurant above Dubrovnik. Atop the mountain, there's a little restaurant aptly named Panorama to sit and watch the sunset. We enjoy our meal with a view of sky and the mountains into Bosnia. We eat our delicious food, sipping our wine and sighing into the relaxed vacation space. After dinner, we walk to the other side of the cable car just in time to see a fabulous sunset over the islands north of the city. It reminds me of standing atop Table Mountain and looking down on Cape Town. Different cities, different continents, similar beauty. After taking many photos, we travel back down the cable car, taking in Old Town all lit up. Throughout our week, we enjoy snacks and meals with a view. On the island of Lapud, we take a brief stroll on the boardwalk and find a restaurant suitable for an idyllic snack before our ferry, reading our books with a view. Another afternoon, we visit a bar above the sea just outside the city walls. We enjoy our juices in the shady cliff before eating dinner in a lovely little cafe outside St. Ignatius Church. On the island of Lokrum, we eat lunch on the monastery grounds under palm trees while mama peacocks lead their fuzzy little babies. We later enjoy a drink and dessert at the restaurant of the monastery garden, which was used for Daenerys' visit to Qarth in Game of Thrones. They hold a garden party for Daenerys where they wander and joke about taking parts of the golden peacock and selling it for an army. The producers put in a peacock statue because of the island and its beautiful feathered inhabitants. As a vegan traveler, it's always a brilliant surprise to find good vegan food. While many restaurants label dishes that are vegan, which I greatly appreciate, Nishtcha is a vegetarian and vegan restaurant written up in guidebooks. Rick Steves says it's the most reliable food in town, and we eat there twice during our stay. The first night, we eat inside the tiny restaurant as the outdoor tables are booked. I enjoy a salad over a slice of flatbread with a gorgeous dressing, then a vegan pasta with tofu and veggies, which is so flavorful I want to lick the plate. Claire chooses veggie samosas and an Indian dish. We move outside to an empty table just in time to see fireworks going off in the distance. For dessert, I devour an almond panna cotta and Claire their chocolate mousse. On our second visit, we sit at the street tables and people watch. I enjoy a gorgeous eggplant dish and decadent chocolate mousse. Some meals are unmemorable. One evening, we go to Taj Mahal, a misnamed restaurant with Bosnian cuisine. Claire's food is more Bosnian than my gazpacho and roasted veggies. Some restaurants are chosen due to proximity. After a long, hot day, we eat at the restaurant literally right outside our door. Some meals are practical. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with local produce for picnic lunches on the beach. Other nights you have unexpected ambiance. In front of the cathedral, an orchestra practices for the opening of the summer festival. The music echoes off the buildings. We find a restaurant nearby and eat dinner to the orchestra playing pieces of their program and opera singers sounding out their parts. My travel companion Claire is a vacation beach gal through and through, just as I am a sea-dew gal, and we enjoy a pleasant mixture of beaching and doing. In Dubrovnik, beach options abound. For our first beach visit, we take the brief ferry to the island of Lapud, where the only sandy beach in Dubrovnik is located. After a short walk through the boardwalk and up through a neighborhood, men with beach buggies and golf carts wait to take us to the beach a mile away for a small fee. Our driver is rushed and we get caught in a ditch off the road, the tire kicking up gravel and dirt all over me and my brand new camera. When we disembark, I furiously clean off my camera. This is travel, a frustrating moment followed by a great day. On the Lapud beach, we sit in chairs under an umbrella all day. These kinds of beaches are new to me. I'm not used to being in the shade on a comfy beach lounger. My journal, a book, a great view. I take a few dips in the beautiful but clear water, watching the little fish swim near my toes. It is a hot, hot day. People run from their shade to the water, kids screeching as the hot sand hits their feet. I soak up the shade, the blue water, the sky. On another day, we head to Kavtat. The ferry ride takes about 45 minutes, and we meander the peninsula path for a beach. We find a secluded one where I can have shade and clear sun. We spend hours reading, looking into the mountains, listening to the lap of the water on the stones. On another day, we visit the island of Lokrum, a short 10-minute boat ride away from Old Town. When we arrive, we head towards the fort to start the day with activity, then sink into relaxation. From what we'd heard, this is an island of walk, swim, walk, swim. The walk took us past a small old church, a monastery, the botanic gardens, and a long olive grove. Then up, up, up. What starts as an easy path through the pine forest soon turns into a paved, inclined walk straight in the sun. It is one of those brutal walks that takes 10 minutes but feels like forever when it's under a warm sun. At the top of the fort, the view is endless. It gives a 360-degree view of Lokrum, Old Town, the islands, and mainland. There are older structures falling apart, which I love. Old brick and stone and vegetation creeping everywhere. I can feel both the real Dubrovnik and the fictional Essos. On this island, they filmed parts of Daenerys' visit to Karth, including the structure at the top of the hill where they filmed the House of the Undying scene. On our way down, we meander through a shady path along the coast, which brings us back to the monastery and the botanic gardens. The man who started the garden wanted to see how vegetation from around the world would grow here. His project flourished until the war, when 50 shells destroyed much of it. It's since been revived, and prickly pears, cactuses, palm trees, and other global plants mingle together. Finding the beach, we reserve our 2 wooden beach loungers under the pine trees and dip into the rocky sea for a swim. You need water shoes to walk on the rocks here, and I wear my tivas. The water feels warmer than on Lapud, and it's quieter. We spend the afternoon reading, journaling, and enjoying the view. It's a gorgeous day again, and we are perched on sun loungers under the shade of pine trees. It's cicadas sharp above us, and the waves lap below. It couldn't be a better spot. For a last swim, we visit the Dead Sea mini lake for a dip. Surrounded by trees and rock with a little cave you can swim into, it is fed by the sea. It is a peaceful bounce around, but a wobbly in and out on very slippery rocks. For a break from Dubrovnik, we chose a day trip to Montenegro. At 7 a.m., we head to our pickup spot, and the streets of Old Town are empty as city workers clear garbage and restaurants begin to put out their tables and chairs. Our group is composed of 13 travelers, Americans, Brits, French, Canadians, and Russians. The 12-hour itinerary involves crossing the border into Montenegro, a few scenic stops, touring Kotor, visiting Budva, then a ferry across the fjord and back to Dubrovnik. It is a beautiful trip, the only interference being the 100-degree temperature. On the drive, the guide tells us about the area, the war, and the buildings that are destroyed and not rebuilt. The factory that used to make yogurt he loved as a kid, the hotel overlooking the sea, the many houses along the way. Yet despite these losses, there is a lot of building being done, which shows its growth and how much tourism helps reinvigorate the city. The border crossing is one of the locals use and is perched on a cliff overlooking the sea. It is the most beautiful border crossing I've experienced. Once we pass through no man's land between the two borders, The border is not yet fixed between the two even at that point. We cross into Montenegro. We stop to take photos of 2 churches in the middle of the lake, then stop for an espresso with a gorgeous view. The morning fog still burns off the lake. We arrive in Kotor, another town with old walls, but here they literally climb the mountainside. Dubrovnik's old town walls are 2 kilometers all around, whereas Kotor's is 5 kilometers and steep. A guide meets us outside the gates, and she gives us a tour around the small walled city, telling stories of merchants, squabbles, and war. It's a gorgeous city with churches and restaurants vying for space, and a stunning photo op every few seconds. We arrive just in time for a traditional dance in the main square. After the brief tour, we have an hour and a half to stroll into the various churches, walk the narrow streets, and enjoy a cafe. The group then reconvenes and drives to Budva, where we have 2 hours to eat lunch, hit the beach, and tour the walled city. Food always comes first, and we find an easy restaurant. The heat begins to feel more oppressive, and as much as I want to see the walled city, a rest on the beach seems a better option. We meander to the quieter beach our guide recommends, but even in the shade of the cliff rocks, it is too hot. I know a swim would do me good, but I am too heat-tired to change into my suit and apply sunblock. Back on the cool bus, we head to our last stop, a viewing of St. Stephen's Island. It's a vacation destination for the rich who want privacy. For example, Prince Charles and Princess Diana spent their honeymoon here in 1982. The guide rattles off other names like Elizabeth Taylor, Bruce Willis, and Pamela Anderson. You can only visit the island if you are paying for accommodation or have a lunch or dinner reservation. With accommodation costing more than €1,000 a night, I can't imagine what a meal costs. We end the trip with a brief 10-minute ferry across the fjord, and I photograph mountains, the sea, and abandoned buildings. Sometimes travel accidentally brings you unexpected moments. On our last night in Dubrovnik, the opening ceremony for the summer festival takes place. As we meander the streets, we are moved aside by security guards as VIPs are brought to the entrance and shake hands with someone very important, which we later discover is the president of Croatia. We huddle with hundreds of others behind a barricade, but can only make out the choir atop the building for the national anthem. We watch as they project videos onto the stone buildings around the square. Knowing that there will be fireworks, we walk to Banja Beach for a good view. We watch the VIPs hike up the road and the boats position themselves. When the fireworks start, they illuminate the walls of Old Town. A visit to Dubrovnik offers a perfect blend of doing and being. With no large museums, there's no need to spend hours inside. Dubrovnik begs you to walk its stone streets, eat at a leisurely pace, and bask in the blue sky and sea around you. It's a city that came back from war to find rejuvenation in its complex history and its straightforward beauty.